thanks everybody for joining our coffee talk here today. As Jen mentioned, this is part one of a three-part webinar series we're doing at TIS called "'Tis the Season." And to kick this series off, we have a great topic here in terms of emotional intelligence being the cornerstone of effective Treasury leadership. This isn't a topic here talked about a lot in the Treasury conference circle, but it's a super important one, obviously, crucial to leadership, crucial to the success of any team. So I'm really excited for today's session. Happy to have Alex with me here today from Moody's. Alex actually did a session on emotional intelligence at Eurofinance in Barcelona, which kind of prompted the idea to bring this to the Coffee Talk series. So looking to bring some of the insights, some of the dialogue that happened in that session to the Coffee Talk session here today as well. And before we jump into the conversation, Alex, maybe you could just take a couple minutes here to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, John. Hello, hi everyone. Good day to you. It's great to be here. My name is Alex Silken. I work as a consultant in Treasury risk and technology space, as well as process automation. Emotional intelligence for me has become an area of increasing interest, and as you can see, I am a finance professional coming from the Treasury background. I'm a management accountant as well. And emotional intelligence, I feel, is such an important concept for us all to keep in mind in professional and personal lives. So very happy to be here to share some insight, hopefully, that you will find interesting.
All right, thanks, Alex. And maybe just to kick us off here in the conversation, I'm sure a lot of the audience members here have heard about emotional intelligence before, but maybe those that haven't been fully introduced to the concept, maybe you could just quickly explain what is emotional intelligence, and more so, this sort of concept of applying that within a professional atmosphere, how that helps your career, how that helps with other aspects of, professional management.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that emotional intelligence is actually a fairly recent topic. It was coined by Daniel Goleman in 1995 when he published a book that was named Emotional Intelligence. And that was the first time, I believe, when emotional intelligence appeared in the public space, right? So it wasn't too long ago that we didn't know about it. But it is essentially a skill that has been there. We have been using it without naming it emotional intelligence, right? Because this is what we talk about as soft skills, right? The social skills, right? So emotional intelligence, the way how Daniel Goleman was looking at it, he was looking at it from the context of professional experience. He was trying to figure out what are the distinguishing competencies that can differentiate between best performers, success stories, successful people, and average. And what he found is that intellectual coefficient, or IQ, isn't the determinant of success, which can resonate with some as well, right? You can be a very smart person, but if you cannot work with other people, you might not actually achieve much, right? So what he found, and this is important especially for those who are senior in the organization, but emotional intelligence skills are important throughout the organization as well, regardless of the level, because it's essentially a set of skills that determines ultimately how well are you able to work with other people. How well are you able to understand your own emotions, work with them, and then understand those emotions as others, and work with those emotions and others as well. So that you are getting those best qualities out of yourself and the others as well. And it's especially important nowadays in the current world, right? With technological advancements, as we do more and more things with automation, with artificial intelligence, etc., with technology, collaboration nowadays is key, right? Because this is where we as human beings come out, right? We need to be able to work with others to achieve something better and to do something together.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, in particular, some of the research that's out there about this actually being a more important skill than IQ or certain hard skills, technical skills that are typically thought as big barometers for success in a job. And you always hear about leaders of companies being sort of charismatic and drawing people to them and things like that. And you have to think a big component of that is the fact that they have a high degree of emotional intelligence as well, right? So definitely something that can be applied universally across,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like you can think about it in this way, right? There are stories of successful people who are essentially saying, "Look, it looks like the only thing I did, I'm not the smartest person in the room. It looks like the thing I did is just I gathered a team of people who are smarter than me, right? And we're able to do this, right? So I bet that that person, right, in that situation who gathered a team of people and made them successful at working together will be high on emotional intelligence, right? And that person will be looked at as a success story.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do everything on your own, right? So it's just about how you motivate people to kind of work toward accomplishing things professionally. No, it's a great point. So yeah, I mean, and we touched upon this a little bit from a professional context, but maybe we could bring this specifically into treasury management. So if you're a treasurer and you're out there and you're thinking about emotional intelligence, what are the ways that it touches your responsibilities kind of directly during the course of your day-to-day? How do you kind of apply those emotional intelligence skills in your specific profession?
Yeah, absolutely. So we touched already on collaboration, right? So treasury teams do not do things in their silos nowadays, or maybe never, right? Never did, right? So we always work with other departments, be it tax, be it legal, increasingly nowadays IT, right? And we need to collaborate with different people coming from different backgrounds, working in different countries, so coming from different cultures as well. Right, so from that perspective, just continuing the theme of collaboration, that is where emotional intelligence skills will become crucial, a crucial determinant of success, right? So how well are you able to understand others and work with them, right, and collaborate with them? How able are you to resolve conflicts if those arise, right? So that's on collaboration thing. But I would also like to touch one other area, which I think is important for Treasury departments, and that is how well Treasury teams and Treasury leaders are able to perform under stress, right? Because Treasury, being the stewards of risk, right? So we are looking at various risks, be it the currency risks, liquidity risks, right? So there will be situations when kind of something is happening out there in the market, banks are not doing well, right? So emotions are high, people are interested, well, what is happening? And it is important in those situations in particular to be able to understand your own emotions so that you're not subdued to panic, so that you're able to control that amygdala hijack, that fight or flight reflex, calm it down, exert that calm atmosphere to your team and to those around you so that you are able to make level-headed, considered decisions on how to move forward. So I think from Treasury perspective in particular, we quite often are being looked at as those stewards, right? The guardians of risks, the guardians of the company, the people who just hold it all together, right? Sometimes against all odds, it seems, in the market. And I believe that emotional intelligence is important here because it allows you to understand what is going on inside, right? And you're able to control all those impulses as well. There was an interesting video in Harvard Mentor, which is called "Leading Like a Swan," and this is something you can look up on the YouTube as well, which essentially talked about how you as a leader can influence the team around you, right? And if you feel flustered, if you feel rushing around, if you feel in a state of panic, that will be multiplied when it comes to your team members, right? Because they will look up at you and they will say, oh, if my leader, my manager feels so stressed out, things really must be bad, right? So being able as a leader to control those emotions so that you project the message that you want to project is important, and that's where emotional intelligence skills come into play.
Yeah, you see it on all sorts of places. I mean, another thing that comes to mind is that there seems to be an expectation on Treasury these days to be sort of a strategic business partner in the broader organization and have a lot of cross-departmental collaboration with, say, AP, AR, accounting, FP&A, tax, right? They're almost the centerpiece of so much transactional information flows through Treasury that they're an information share. They're just a strong business partner from that respect. And I have to imagine being emotionally intelligent and really understanding how what you do impacts other departments, and being able to sort of collaborate through that sort of mentality is really important, as well as you sort of forward the place of your Treasury organization within the company. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's what I've seen in my experience as well. Treasury teams are also looked at very often as project managers, right? So be it cash repatriation activities, be it intercompany restructuring, mergers and acquisitions. Quite often it's we'll look after money, right? So be it merger and acquisition, cash repatriation, right? It will be money movement. So Treasury is looked at to gather the team and make sure that everything works, right? And we always keep in our minds, well, what can go wrong, right? So you start thinking about, thinking in advance, trying to figure out with other people what are the potential solutions, right? So emotional intelligence skills in this context also comes into play in a sense of giving the voice to others, right? So you're able to bring out the different perspectives. You're able to be diverse and inclusive in a real sense of this word, right? In a sense that you're able to engage everyone so that everyone shares their perspectives, understands those different perspectives, and are able to get the best out of each of those points of view. And this is where emotional intelligence also is quite crucial.
yeah, really interesting. I mean, I'm sure we've all come across people who are like that, who are able to kind of coax out those viewpoints from all the different stakeholders involved in the conversation and really bring out a better result as a result of that exercise. So it's an interesting application of emotional intelligence. Maybe we take a step back here. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit too in terms of the importance of emotional intelligence and team building within Treasury, right? So one thing we commonly hear time and time again is it's hard to attract good people. Within Treasury, it's hard to find people who are good fits for your team, who have the right skill set that you're looking for, and then it's even harder to retain those people, right, in the competitive market, particularly where there seems to be a finite amount of Treasury resources out there that are really, available to sort of recruit into your organization. So, just from the perspective of team building, how is emotional intelligence applied well there, and how can treasurers kind of use that to foster collaboration, motivation, and employee retention?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to note that anything is not a panacea, right? So it's not like, oh, you just do this thing and everything happens, right? So same with emotional intelligence, right? It's one of those things that if it's there, right, if the team collaboration is there, then it promotes motivation, then it galvanizes retention, right? Then it improves the culture within the team, right? But it's just one of those things, right? But I would say where it comes to team building, the key for me is really being genuine in your interaction with team members, those who you lead, who you manage, those who are your peers, those who are your superiors, right? So from my perspective, the important and key aspect is being genuine, and that could find its way in a number of ways, right? So one of the things that you can do as a manager and as a team leader is to try to understand and be interested in what are the goals and objectives, personal and career objectives of those people who work with you and work under your guidance, right? Under your leadership. Because then you're able to not just be a manager who gets things done, but you're also able to be a leader who leads the organization and motivates everyone to progress towards a particular vision, right? A vision that is shared because it's based on common values within the team. But you also can be a mentor, right? You can also try to figure out, well, what are the things that are within my power to give to my team members so that they are able to advance towards their career objective, right? So, and it comes through genuine interest. It comes through dialogue. It comes through asking the question, well, what is that you want to do, right? Where do you want to work? What it is that you want to achieve? What are the kind of skills that you would like to get? Only when you know what your team members want, right? Only when you have an idea, only once you establish the trust with people, then you're able to connect it with the opportunities that come up within the organization, right? And that's where the opportunities might come up that are not obvious, right? There might be career moves between teams. There might be career moves into some other functional areas, right? So, and this is where within the organization you're able to help people progress, right? Now, one other thing that I would also mention in the context of team building and developing a team is the importance of addressing conflicts or addressing underperformance. And here I would probably evoke a book that was written by Kim Scott that is called Radical Candor. So Kim Scott essentially says that you need to be able to confront the people. You need to be able to talk with the people about poor performance, underperformance, if it's necessary. But she says that you need to be doing this in a way that shows that you care personally, right? But you also need to be challenging directly, right? And as close to the moment as possible, because underperformance is seen within the team, right? It is something that sometimes people wish to just swipe under the rug, but it is, if it's there, it needs to be addressed because it impacts not just the person who is not performing, but it also impacts the other people who are actually doing their bit, right? So as a leader, as a manager, it is important to have those conversations. It is important to help the person who is not performing to the standard that is expected to understand what it is that he or she can be doing differently, right? Sometimes it all boils down to misunderstanding, right? Not understanding the instructions, not being trained properly. I'm a big believer that we all want to do the right thing. We all want to do good job, right? We don't want to not deliver. And if sometimes it happens that someone is not delivering, it probably is not because of some intrinsic quality. It's because of something that is around that person that just prevents them from reaching their potential. And I believe it is the job of a manager and a leader to discover what the thing is through dialogue in order to clear the path for everyone to achieve what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you brought up here that I think could be hugely motivating for teams. You know what I mean? Like just having a manager who really seems to understand your goals, your professional development objectives, really your place within the organization, right? Versus just being viewed as a resource that has a list of tasks that they're completing on a day-to-day basis. That's going to motivate employees enormously. And I think it probably helps too with the retention, because one of the most common reasons obviously employees leave is because they feel like there's no growth within the company, or maybe they're misunderstood and they're not on the right career trajectory. But also the one about, addressing underperformance, which can be, like you mentioned, a huge demotivator for teams if they're seeing one particular resource maybe underperforming in comparison to the rest of the teams, and they feel as though management's not addressing that correctly, you know what I mean? And maybe an unnecessary amount of work's falling to the rest of the team, or, it's just sort of plainly being ignored. Finding the right way to really be able to bring that up and correct those issues is enormous in keeping a team, fully motivated. So some really good advice there. Maybe we'll drop that book you mentioned in the chat in case anybody's interested in checking that out here after the session. So what about, what do you think about in terms of developing these skills within your employees? Like, of course, as a manager, you're always trying to develop people professionally. You're also looking for the next managers, obviously, right? So it seems like, is emotional intelligence from that respect a skill that you want to start developing in your own team? Is it universal? Is it sort of best reserved for those that will probably likely move into management roles in the future? Or, kind of how do you view that topic?
Yeah. I believe that emotional intelligence skills is something that is vital for everyone within the organization, right? It's not just those who are aspiring or who are planned to become leaders that should be getting this, right? As some kind of, oh, here you go, right? You're going to be a leader, so this is what you're getting with that. This is your perk, right? No. The way I look at this, emotional intelligence skills is something that is crucial for everyone's success. Whether you are a rock star or superstar, right? Whether you are kind of on that growth trajectory, or if you're on a plateau at that particular point in time, you still work with others, right? And it would serve well to everyone within the team to be able to work with the team members, right? So developing the emotional intelligence skills within the team members, regardless of kind of the trajectory, is important from that perspective, because it allows you to open people up, right? It allows you to find ways that people collaborate better, right? It allows you to build a team where everyone can count on each other, where everyone can trust each other, right? It creates a team where there is no resentment. Oh, these three people, right? This is the 30% that is to be leader, and therefore they're getting everything, and we kind of 70% who are stuck here, and then as strong contributors, right? We just don't get anything. That is not the kind of dynamic that you would like to promote, right? So I believe that emotional intelligence skills is something that everyone should be getting, and everyone should be benefiting from, because it kind of permeates not only professional life, permeates, and it goes into personal life as well, right? It's the kind of skill that kind of helps you throughout your life.
Yeah, I'd agree completely. I mean, everybody's building professional relationships, everybody's collaborating on a day-over-day basis, and everybody can benefit from, emotional intelligence for sure. So yeah, I definitely agree with your viewpoint on that one. Maybe that being said, if these skills are important for everybody to sort of learn, and develop over time, what are some ways that you can do that? So that I'd have to imagine they're the traditional ways, like, so you've suggested some reading materials already here, courses. I think this topic is making its way into a lot of business academic programs as well too. There's a recognition that this is important for professional development. But are there any other resources that maybe people should be tapping into? And then maybe like sort of a sub question related to this, as we start to look at sort of the way that AI is changing the way that people work, artificial intelligence, is there any sort of overlap between AI and EI? Is there any way that sort of AI can make us more emotionally intelligent, or sort of help us, in our path to sort of developing some of these skills? So I'd just be curious to get your thoughts on some of these questions.
Right. Okay. So I'll try to take them one by one. Right. So first on training. At the very beginning, I said that when Daniel Goleman started this, right? So one thing that he found is that your intellect is not a main determinant of your success, and that is good news, because intellect is something that IQ is something that you cannot drastically change throughout your life, right? It's something that you're born with. It's a quality that you can't do much about. Where it comes to emotional intelligence skills, these are the skills that you not only can improve, but you also improve naturally over time, right? So kind of that comes with personal experience, right? There is a reason why those people in their teenage years, right? They seem a little bit more rowdy, right? They are kind of a little bit more finding themselves in conflict situations, right? Because, hey, typically, not everyone, but typically, they haven't had the experience that life brings, right, to develop the emotional intelligence skills. Now, as you progress throughout your life, naturally, you would be getting that experience. You would be learning how to work with others, so your EI skills will go up. But there are various things that you can do to work on a particular skill that is of interest to you. You can do it with a coach. You can do it on your own as well by reading books. You can do it with your friends and your partner, right? So that is something that you definitely can improve over time, and there are various things that you can use for that. Now, going to the tools that you could use. So Daniel Goleman, together with Korn Ferry Hayes Group, developed a 360-degree feedback tool that they called ESCI, Emotional and Social Competency Inventory Test, which essentially allows you to score how well you are doing on those different skills. There is 12 of them, right? So you're able to see, and this is going to be music for the ears of those in the finance organization, right? You can actually put a score to your soft skills, right? And because it's a 360-degree feedback tool, you're scoring yourself, but you're also reaching out to your peers, your manager, and your employees, your direct reports, for them to score you as well, so that you can see, well, I'm scoring myself this on this skill, like how far is it from how other people perceive me where it comes to this particular skill or the kinds of behaviors that I exhibit. So ESCI tool is definitely something that I would recommend looking out for. Those can be delivered by trained coaches. I at some point also got trained to deliver that, which was an interesting experience, and that's something I've been using as with some of the people that I'm engaged with. It's a cool tool. And again, as a person coming from finance background, putting a number to something that is called a soft skill is actually quite good.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
And then your question about where it goes with technology and AI, right? I think here it's interesting, because where it comes to the language models, ChatGPT, right? So it has an enormous treasure trove of information coming from written sources, be it the books or internet, right? So you're able to quiz ChatGPT. You can go in there and just type in, well, what are the emotional intelligence skills? It will tell you, right? You can be more specific. What are the emotional intelligence skills that Daniel Goleman described? And it will tell you, hey, here are the skills, right? And then you can start asking, well, how can I improve my emotional self-awareness? Give me 10 tips. It will give you 10 tips, right? So it will just get the information from everything that it consumed during training to give you those tips based on that, right? The more recent ability of ChatGPT to do web search is another interesting one, because you're not only able to rely on the training data that it had up to a certain point, but ChatGPT is also able to search internet, right, for anything that is more recent. So probably you can go there and say, well, search internet to find a personal trainer on emotional intelligence skills in New York. I'm pretty sure it will find quite a few.
That's true. But could you use it from the perspective of like written emotional intelligence? You know, like could you tell it to write an email to staff about XYZ topic in a way that shows that I have a high degree of emotional intelligence, or is the topic just too relative that AI will never fully be able to grasp it like in the proper context? You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of curious about that.
It's interesting. I haven't seen any research on writing emails, but I did see a research on doctors, general practitioners. There was a research that was comparing the efficiency of doctors, like how well they're able to deliver a diagnosis compared to artificial intelligence. And another score that was interesting is how people who sought their advice, the doctor's advice, perceived whether the doctors, or AI in that case, whether the person on the other end delivering that say service was empathetic or not. And believe it or not, I think on the diagnostic fronts, AI and doctors were pretty much relatively the same. But where it comes to empathy, AI beats the doctors.
No way.
Which is really interesting, right? And this is, I would also go back to emotional intelligence, right? We know that kind of the whole medical profession, the doctors, those people who are facing us, are extremely overworked, right? They're not paid, typically not paid well, right, across the globe, and you know, it all permeates their attitude as well, right? So they're trying to just go through patient by patient by patient by patient, right? And be quick about it. They only have 15 minutes, right, to spend on a patient. So they're kind of just going through the motions, right? Just trying to be as efficient as possible. And of course, they have their own emotions inside, right? They feel something about this whole situation. So I think, to me, it's not a big surprise that artificial intelligence scored better on things like empathy, is because, hey, it doesn't have emotions, right? And it can still sound polite, right? It can still sound interested in you, asking questions, etc. Not because it cares, but because it was trained to do so, right? So that's interesting. And I've seen now, thinking of emails, that did see one early use case for ChatGPT when it just appeared, where someone kind of was writing a response in a very rude way, and put it into ChatGPT and said, well, can you please change that response to a professional, polite email, right? Just keeping the context, but change it so that it's not as rude as I just written it right now, because I'm kind of emotionally loaded, etc. And ChatGPT produced a very good result.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, how many people have ever been like presenting something or been in a conversation where afterwards they said, I hope that came across well. I hope that came across the way I intended it to, you know, and to have some sort of AI or scoring to kind of give you some feedback on that. I mean, I can see there's a lot of value in that for just, you know, continuing to refine and develop those emotional intelligence skills and just communication skills in general. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's being applied to that space as well.
It's like that app, you know, Grammarly, that automatically checks your grammar. But I suppose you could have an app that is kind of looking at it from more like language perspective, and telling you, well, you know what, your tone seems a little bit off, right? Or you're trying to make a joke here, but you know, it will likely fall flat, right? So be careful about that.
Interesting stuff. Well, I mean, we covered a lot of ground here in terms of emotional intelligence during the course of the session. I mean, you know, we'd love to open up the floor here to the participants to ask a couple questions in case any thoughts came up during the course of the conversation. But maybe before we do, Alex, any final thoughts, final words of wisdom, or, you know, any resources you would point out to the listeners to kind of improve their soft skills and their emotional intelligence skills before we jump into the Q&A session here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would probably say that emotional intelligence skills, even though it is a term that appeared fairly recently, I believe it is a skill of the past, present, and the future. It will not go anywhere. It will still be there, and it still will be a huge determinant of what we as individuals are able to do and are able to achieve. And if there is one key takeaway that I would like the audience to take out from this, is that belief that, hey, this is a skill that I can work and improve on, right? It's not like, okay, I'm born with it, that's it, I have to live my whole life with that and be miserable about it. No, you can work on those skills, you can improve them, you can become better. You will probably not become perfect because there is no kind of no perfection here, right? We still make mistakes, right? Over time, but being able to work on a skill and improve it is important. And where it comes to resources, so a couple of books that I mentioned. So Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence. If you haven't read that, that is definitely something I would recommend. It's a fairly easy and interesting reading. Another book that I like from Daniel Goleman is in the realm of destructive emotions and how we overcome them. So that is another one that is interesting. That's a conversation between Dalai Lama and the Eastern philosophers and the Western scientists on various topics that are touching destructive emotions. So that is also an interesting read. And of course, Kim Scott, Radical Candor, is another book that I feel can't be missed, especially if you are like many people finding it hard to have those difficult conversations. I think that's a good one to read as well.
Nice. No, thanks for that. I'll definitely check a few of those out myself, so I hope the listeners do as well. Before we wrap up here, definitely want to see if there's any questions that maybe came in from the audience during the course of the conversation here. So maybe we'll pull Jen back on for to see if maybe any questions came through the chat while we were having our conversation here.
Yes, we had a couple questions roll in. Thank you so much. That was such an interesting topic. And just as a quick reminder, we will be sending you a list of resources that Alexander discussed during the session. We'll also send you the recording of the session, as well as, if you got a chance, we have a holiday cocktail mixology video in the chat section for you to enjoy. So we'll package that all up and get that out to you. Okay, so the first question came in from Lisa. During the course of the conversation, you mentioned the name of a 360 test. Could you let her know what that was again?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a test that is typically referred to as ESCI, ESCI. So it stands for Emotional and Social Competency Inventory Test. And that, John and Jan, we probably should just put it out there for people in the list of resources. So that is the test that is typically delivered by coaches. Right, so that is a test that you're able to use to score yourself and also ask feedback from people on how often you exhibit particular behavior, right? And then those different behaviors would fall into 12 different emotional intelligence skills, right? So you're able to see where you are on that scoring, how you compare with others, and what the coach will do with you is they will help you to understand what it actually means, right? So that's what the core part of training that I took was focused on. Well, how do you explain to the individual what these scores mean, right? And helping to figure out, well, what are the important things for that individual that's taking that test. Definitely something I would recommend myself. I've gone through 3 of them in various iterations at different stages of my career. The skills definitely change over time, and hey, your focus changes throughout your life and throughout your career as well, which is important to note too. Hope it helps.
Great, thank you. All right, the next question comes in from Kara. How can emotionally intelligent teams make companies more successful and profitable?
Right, so that's an interesting question, right? And of course, if we talk about impacts on companies, then people who would be at the top of the organization, right? The CEOs, the leaders, the senior leaders those typically would exert the biggest influence on the organization, right? So think about Tim Cook, right? From Apple perspective, he is leading a huge company, right? Transforming that, promoting the product, but he is doing that in such a humble way. I've seen the AdWords that they created in Apple, Mother Nature. If you haven't seen on YouTube, just look up Apple Mother Nature. And it's an incredible way to turn an ESG report into something that just resonates. And the reason I mention it here in the context of Tim Cook is one thing that really stood out for me is how Tim Cook appeared. He appeared as a very humble individual who is who is stressing out about Mother Nature coming to them to audit their operations. So to me, of course, it's a PR, right? It's a public relations stunt, right? So they choreographed it, but for me, it signals that, hey, that person has something in him, right, to really come out as that insecure, humble individual, right? So he is willing to do that. He is able to do that, and for me, that speaks volumes. But I don't want to give the impression that it's only the senior leaders who can influence the organizations. We talked about how collaboration within teams can promote certain activities, right? From emotional intelligence perspective. It's not always that hierarchy determines who is going to be the influencer within the organization. Sometimes you can find that relatively junior person in the right place with the right network is able to move the organization forward much better than someone more senior who's just doing it by direction, right? Because that more junior person is doing it through network, right? Through socializing, making sure that they go together in the same direction that they share.
Great, thank you. The next question comes in from Anton. How do you ensure to stay genuine while using emotional intelligence skills?
Right, and yeah, I think I've read quite a number of books, and there are some of them that really resonated with me that I will always remember, right? And over time, I started thinking, well, there must be something fundamental there, right? And it's when I came across that book by Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence, that's where I was like, that's the missing piece of the puzzle. For me, the biggest differentiation between using these skills as a tool to achieve some kind of a goal that you have, right, and being genuine is really, in the words of Kim Scott, right, caring personally, right? So you first and foremost, you try to understand the other person, understand their point of view, where they're coming from, and you're doing this from the perspective of genuine interest, right? You're not doing this just to, check the box, but you ask and then you listen, right? And for me, it's important, and it's also a skill because honestly, we like to talk a lot, right? But asking a question and being silent is something that doesn't come easily, and that's a skill that I'm trying to improve on as well.
Great, thank you. All right, the last couple of questions come in from Annalise. Is it not a contradiction that you would be consulting ChatGPT to help you write emotionally intelligent emails while this is a technical tool? You should always combine it by developing those skills for live interactions, right?
Right. So I think the contradiction comes from the point where it's kind of a shortcut, right? You can learn to write emotionally intelligent emails without really training yourself to restrain your emotions. Yes, absolutely. So of course, it's crucially important for you as an individual to really understand what is driving you, right? What are the emotions that you are feeling, so that you're able to then make a determination, well, is it a good moment to write that email, right? Sometimes you come across tips in the books, in the business books. Hey, if you feel that kind of you are ticked off, right? Just don't write that email. Let it rest for some time, right? So yeah, it kind of goes back to those emotions. So I would say, as long as you recognize those emotions in yourself, right? If you occasionally use ChatGPT to do something like that, I don't think there is anything bad about it, right? Now, if you always use that, yes, you rob yourself of that possibility to train that skill yourself. That is absolutely true. But if you find yourself in a situation where you do need to write that email, you don't feel like you're in a position to do so, and you need some help, then I suppose ChatGPT could provide that that help that will not be biased in a way, right? In the sense that, hey, you can't really go to your colleague and ask them to write that email if you feel particularly stroppy, right? So at least it gives you the ability to put something in writing, no matter how rude. You can put it to ChatGPT, it will handle everything, right? And it will take it all, and it will not be mean back to you, right? So then it gives you the response back. You think about this, and in the process of thinking about it, you already start calming down, because you're moving from that amygdala side, right, where, oh, I need to either fight or flight, right? You start engaging your prefrontal cortex, and that subdues your negative emotions, so you feel you're much better in a position to respond. So it could also be one of those techniques, but you're right, shouldn't be abused.
Yeah, I think that's how I was thinking about it too, is more of AI being a feedback tool, that you are being sort of emotionally intelligent or detecting things that you might not notice naturally in your own tone when you're writing something. But yes, certainly. I mean, it probably even dovetails nicely into the point about being authentic in your communications. Could ChatGPT write something that's both emotionally intelligent and authentically you? I would be shocked, obviously, right, that they could do that. So obviously, there's no real comparison to actually developing those true human emotional intelligence skills. So.
Right. Now, I wouldn't. Yeah, I would say it probably can emulate, right? But it can't truly feel anything, right? But it can emulate feelings. That's fine. And I suppose if you took all of your outlook, right, in let's say your 5 years of writing emails, and you fed it all to ChatGPT, and you told it, oh, look at all emails that I sent over 5 years, and tell me, how should a perfect prompt look for me to tell you, right, how the email should look going forward? It probably will give you, oh, this is how you should structure your prompt, so that my response is as close to your style of writing as possible. And I suppose with open AI giving possibility to build your own bots, your own ChatGPT, this is where you can pretty much feed all of that information there, and it will be giving responses based on what you fed, which is your own text. I suppose it could work.
Great, thank you. And the last question also comes in from Annalise. In what time period do you think is needed to make such a change to an emotionally intelligent Treasury organization?
It depends on what kind of change you're going through, right? So if it's something that is relatively small, right, then you probably can be talking about something. You probably can be talking about smaller time frames. But in general, if you're talking about cultural change, right, it is something that takes time, right? So do not expect immediate response, immediate kind of what is the word? The immediate effect, right? So it takes time, right? It builds trust It builds the ability for people to be open over time, right? But if you are effectuating a cultural change within the team, it probably makes sense to also think about, well, where are you, where you're going to, and kind of how do you measure your progress? Because I suppose with emotional intelligence skills, it's particularly important to be able to figure out, well, how do I know I'm progressing in the right direction, right? So that's important to keep in mind.
Okay, Alex, just want to thank you for being on this session. I mean, I thought it was great. It's a topic that is, profoundly interesting, I think, and starting to get the attention that really deserves. And obviously there's so many ways you can apply this within Treasury, just professionally or within your personal life as well. So I thought it made for an awesome, webinar topic here today and a great discussion. So thanks a lot for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for being great moderators and hosts, John and Jan. Really appreciate it. Lisa, congratulations on your win. So yeah, I know there are 2 more webinars, so good luck with those. Hope you're able to, the audience, hope you're able to join those as well. Should be interesting topics. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks to the audience for joining us here today. As mentioned, definitely check out the other 2 webinars if you're available. We're going to host 2 more of these sessions on equally as interesting topics, so we hope we see you there. And otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the session. Alex and I are always free afterwards if anybody wants to discuss any of these topics further or had any questions that we didn't have a chance to get through during the Q&A. But otherwise, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining.